realize that it's only 17% of borrowers go back to the same lender.
What's called the berry button, big red button that I hit.
Hey, remember that?
Right?
And, oh yeah, I love.
So, all right, everybody, welcome to another edition of Laugh, Let and Eat, the podcast. And we are doing a once-in-a-lifetime moment with 2020's vision. And I believe this class is called the Leader Class. Is that correct, Madison? Help me out here, buddy. Is it the Leader Class? Sales expert class for 2020 Vision for Success Coaching. And we're joined by none other than Frank Ferens is in the house. I know this is a moment that I'm going to relish forever. Frank is in here, so everything must be good in my life. So guys, I know that this is a course called How to Create a Mortgage Podcast. I've been on this journey myself for about 3 years. I can tell you that it is, Jason Frazier, in case you guys don't know him, he's also a podcaster and someone else marketing-wise in the industry. He's the one who kind of steered me in the direction of the podcast back in 2019 or 2018, I can't remember the year. But I got hooked on it, and really, this was one of those things that once you get into the podcast and once you start doing it, it really is fun. One thing I will definitely caution everybody is it's a lot of work. So it starts off as this like little idea that you get in your head one day, and the next thing you know, you're spending 80 hours a week on it, and you know what I mean. And your loans are not getting closed, or your managers are asking where you are. So there is a balance that I've had to kind of live with, and we're going to talk about that in some of the slides that Madison will be sharing momentarily with us. But I want to make sure that we cover a pretty good spectrum of the podcast and how it starts and kind of the nuts and bolts. Obviously, look, we're not going to be able to cover everything. Madison, how long just everybody who knows Madison Keenan of Annie Mac Mortgage, she's my co-host on Laugh, Let and Eat. She joined us midway through our third season, and then we started a show just for her. By the way, she has a nickname, in case you guys don't know this. It's Madness. She's had it since third grade. I don't know what she was doing in third grade to get a name like Madness, but there it is. So we actually started a podcast for her called Laugh, Let and Eat Madness. So it's a spin-off of this show. And Madness, I mean, what do you do in your own podcast when we do get the chance to record it?
Well, I'll start with saying that I am from New Jersey. Fobby likes to bring this up on every episode. I think it's telling of, the name and my brand that I've tried to establish for myself. But essentially the Madness segment of the podcast came into fruition because after we would record a traditional podcast, me and Fobby would get off the recording side of things, and I would just start rapid fire, like venting about things that were happening in real time for my day-to-day mortgage business. And he was like, you know what? This would make a really good segment to what we already do. So our traditional podcast is having other, members come on, and we do like an interview style. Sometimes if we have multiple guests on at the same times, we'll do like a panel. But the Madness segment in itself is me being real. So it's me talking about things that are happening in current time, whether it's, the interest rate market, it's a specific client that I'm dealing with, or it's just something that I feel is a common theme that a lot of loan officers are going through.
And one thing about Madness is she's not afraid to talk. So she was actually a guest on our show a year and a half ago when we were doing one with the new generation or millennials of the mortgage industry. And out of all three of the panelists, she was the one that was like challenging me and pushing me as a host. And I was like, whoa, where's this girl from? You know what I mean? I thought she was like this little girl that's going to be doing loans, and she came out fierce. And about 6 months later, we asked her to come on and be part of the show. So it's been a great journey, and having a co-host is definitely something that everybody should think about, when they're doing a podcast. But with that said, let's get into the slide presentation here. So Madison, if you could share your screen, and let's see if we can make this PowerPoint really work today without John being around. We have a producer named John, and he had another engagement show up. So is there a way you can play it, or is there not a way you can play it?
Wait, can you guys see?
There you go. Perfect.
Okay.
All right, we're in. So this is how to create a mortgage podcast, and let's see what John has me talking about. So let's go to it. So what's the big idea, right? I mean, this is really where it all starts, guys. I mean, this is about as basic as it gets. And so what are some good reasons that you guys obviously you're on this class for a reason? You want to start a podcast, or you're thinking about starting a podcast. My biggest reason was to generate leads for my business. That was, I'm not ashamed to say it, right? I remember the founders of Zenix Mortgage Academy, good friends of mine, came on the show. I think there was a second or third episode, and Casey's husband Rob was like, "Hey, Fob, are you doing this podcast to recruit loan officers?" And I'm like, "Everything I do 24/7 is to recruit loan officers. So the podcast is just another branch of that." And so generating leads with realtors, builders, that sort of stuff, the podcast gives you the platform to do that within. And then also, look, I mean, to be recognized as an industry leader, I mean, this is obviously something that a lot of people want. They want to have that recognition. They want to be recognized. Madison, I think, I don't know. I mean, it seems like more people recognized you in Tampa last year or last summer when we were down there. Definitely the madness thing is kind of
Yeah.
gave you a little bit of a float there, huh?
I was gonna say, so I guess maybe my reason when you guys invited me to come back to co-host was to really get my name out there. I just thought that it was a great platform where you're able to be vulnerable, you're able to share your stories and share things that are important to you. And I felt like it was a platform where I can get the most reach, similar to social media platforms. You're not able to talk to 500 people in 1 hour in a normal face-to-face conversation. But if you have a message and you need that message to be heard, or you feel like there's other people that can relate to you, that's where I really was like, there's no lose for my name and my brand, Madness. Mortgage Madness is where, I think we forgot the mortgage part, but I have a Instagram page called Mortgage Madness. And so my whole goal was just to get the recognition and the brand to evolve into something of its own.
Yeah. So she basically just said the third bullet on there is share an important message, right? And there are important messages that we share in our podcast on a regular basis. I mean, just this past week we had Steve Scanlon, the author of Still the Lizard Brain, which is about calming down your brain and how to redevelop your motivation and find some things within yourself that will so those kind of things are very powerful to be able to have a conversation with somebody who wrote a book like that and then bring that to the mortgage loan industry, because it's something that may get lost because we're always so busy looking at 30-year rates or this and that. All of a sudden you get this motivation expert coming on and it really does kind of give a new message. So I think that's important. So guys, like I said before, if you have any questions while I'm talking or Madison's talking, just please chime in right away. Don't feel, like this is a live show that we're doing right now. So obviously the more questions
Please
you get,
talk.
yeah. So if I start calling on people, it's only because I have a habit of doing that when we do a panel discussion. So here's another thing that I think is really important. And I want to make sure that you guys understood this. You got to feel good about what you're talking about. So just because I'm doing something and Madison's doing something and XYZ is doing another thing, doesn't mean you have to do it. You can do what you feel good about that you can do on a regular basis. So can you bring some insight to an old topic? You know what I mean? Like with Madness, I mean, that was a kind of a thing where we're, I think one of the first episodes we talked about Madness, if I'm right, is that clients who go ghost you and show up like 3 months later or something like that. I don't know.
Yep.
Not getting pre-approvals and going looking for houses. I mean, so these were like loan officer stuff that they were going through. And as the market is changing, so are Madison's rants.
Yeah, weekly.
So, where there was an abundance of business, now there's like, okay, there's a little scarcity of business, but we're still getting through it. And it's just bringing some new insight to old topics. Also, I think what's important is having experience that help others. I mean, one of the things, once again, and I'm going to, piggyback on Madness a lot, is I've been in the business since 1994. So a lot of times when I hear her sharing stuff, I'm able to kind of tell her, oh, we went through this in 96, or we went through this in 2008, and this is what we did. So she's able to kind of learn from my experience and hopefully it's help her. But at the same time, she's venting, she's ranting, we're recording, we're getting ratings out of it. So it's a win-win for all of us. So it's not a bad combination, but this is the way you can develop your podcast. Those are the kind of ideas you start developing. The other thing I would tell you guys is be specific, right? I think Madison, you can attest to this. I mean, we dive deep. We go pretty granular with some people, and sometimes it's like, I know with the guest one time, for me, I don't know where Madness was at, but sometimes it feels like, is this conversation ever going to end? Like, please
Yeah.
just get me out of this rabbit hole right now. Someone please, like somebody just drag me out.
I
And
would say too, like the planning, I think like some of the episodes that we do a lot of pre-planning, and we've seen on those episodes where maybe we didn't have time that week to really plan, or we didn't really brush up to understand or learn more about the person that was coming on. And I think that that shows. So similar to, anything else that you do, you really want to make sure that you're not sticking to a script, but at least coming back to the main original points, because
Yeah.
it's really easy to go sidetracked and get on tangents. And not that those tangents don't end up being entertaining, but if you have an overarching goal or a topic that you're trying to cover, make sure to have a few bullet points of specific things that you want to hit. And then if there's a conversation that's trailing off, then you can always come back and kind of recoup to another question or bring it back to the original topic.
Yeah. And look at, I mean, the next bullet I put on here is drill down on topics. So, I mean, you're going to go down rabbit holes. You're going to do that. It's just, it's a
natural.
conversation. Yeah. And one of the things, like Madison was saying, is we don't really script our show. We may have 4 or 5 questions or 4 or 5 categories that we're going to take a guest through, but we're not really scripting the show. So we don't know sometimes where some guests might say, well, Fob, I don't know how to answer that question, and just shut up. And also I'm like left hanging in midair. Like,
and then we're like, all right, so now where do we take this? Or like they give you an answer that you weren't expecting and you weren't prepared for their answer. And now you're just like, okay. So it's good when you have, if you don't want to go on a complete script, it's good to just have those specific
and by the way,
bullet
format,
points.
we're gonna talk about this in a slide coming up, but the format that we're talking about is the interview format. And there's multiple formats of a podcast. So there's not just one format. This is the format that I was comfortable in creating, you know what I mean? And then Madison joined and she was comfortable being part of, but it's not the format that you have to follow. So Madison, we get to the next slide. Okay. So now that you got the big idea, let's talk about the name game, right? By the way, Madison, just in case you don't know, as of last week, we are now number 9. We moved up 1 slot from number 10. So this is the ratings that comes out for 1,800 mortgage podcasts that are featured on FeedSpot. So as of August 2nd, we were now number 9, which is for me is a great honor and recognition that we're doing the right stuff and we're giving content. But the name game, as easy as this sounds, your listeners should be able to understand what they're listening to the minute they hear your title. We've all heard that saying, don't judge a book by its cover. But we all judge a book by its cover. I mean, it's just the way it works, right? I mean, I published a book last year. Candy's on here. She'll tell you that we changed the name a few times because, it had to be something. And Candy helped me a lot with naming the book at the end. So, we are judging books by the cover. Podcast titles are no different. And so laugh, learn, and eat. I will admit, I wish I had done a better job with naming the podcast. I know it sounds pretty cool or whatever sometimes, but sometimes I do wish maybe something else could have come out of it. I don't know. I was with a marketing team and we were trying to come up with stuff. And I think I laid down like 3 core values that I wanted the show to cover, which was humor, mortgage lending, and food. And someone like you took that Julia Roberts movie that
I was just gonna, Eat, Pray, Love. That's what it reminds me of.
You should just call it Laugh, Learn, and Eat. And I was like, done. Let's go.
Except now it's Laugh, Lend, and Eat Madness. So sometimes if you don't make that break, some people think that we're gonna eat me. So yes. Like we said, be careful with the names, guys.
Be careful with names. Well, now we got to mark this show on YouTube explicit. Explicit language could be heard to this time. So anyway, but look, I mean, once again, the name game is huge, right? So make sure your listener. I mean, there's shows. There's a lady out there. I forgot her name, but it's like Mortgage Mama. She has a podcast. There is Mortgage Pros. My friend out there, Phil Treadwell, has Mortgage Marketing Experts. Once again, the title is telling the listener, hey, if you listen to this, this is what you're gonna get. So it's really, really cool. Like those memes highlighting how important punctuation placement is. Did I screw up somewhere? That's JP's fault if it screwed up. Anyway, I think it's very important to get the right name for yourself, because you want to make sure that your listeners want to be able to tune in for you for a reason. So I want to pause here because we are about 20 minutes into this conversation, 15 minutes into this conversation. Does anybody have any questions that they want to just throw out here? Tyler, how about you? You're looking at the screen, so I'm just going to call you out. How are you doing? Tyler Houston.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I have no questions as of now.
All right. Frank, you got yourself unmuted for a reason?
Hey, I think this is beautiful, man. I thought this, I didn't pay attention. I saw you guys, I saw your name and I said, let me see what he's doing today. And then I see madness. So now I'm interested in madness though.
All right.
There you go.
Good enough. Guys, seriously, I would love to get some questions from you guys. Chime in anytime, right? And Jackie, I appreciate the comment.
Madness, what part of New Jersey are you from?
North Jersey.
North Jersey.
Wayne.
North
Okay,
Jersey.
I'm from Queens, New York, so.
Okay.
For the
that's why
record,
you're interested.
there is no Central Jersey, and they gave up the East and West Jersey. You're either
Yeah,
from the
no,
north side or the south side. I learned this a few episodes ago.
We did. Oh, but speaking of names, that's a good one. The Real Realtors of New Jersey is one of the episodes that we did. And that was all New Jersey real estate agents. And I thought that was a great episode, not being biased because I'm from Jersey, but I just thought, it was when the Real Housewives of New Jersey was, in season, and it got a lot of people interested because they were like, huh.
Yeah. I mean, once again, naming your episodes is an important part. I mean,
Episodes is important.
Yeah. So, I mean, your listeners, sorry, Candy, what are you saying?
I just want to say Jackie had a really good comment in the chat about the importance of punctuation. And maybe she wants to say something about that.
Go ahead, Jackie. Come
Oh,
on.
I was laughing about Madison said if you catch
The madness.
yeah, but I actually did have a couple of questions. About how much time do you dedicate to each episode? Like just kind of on a high level, as far as, naming, planning, spending time looking up your guests. How much time do you think you put into each episode before you're live?
I mean, it's kind of random because there's not an actual number. Sometimes literally we'll put in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Comes in and boom, 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 right?
Yeah.
Madness's shows, literally, I feel like we're just recording.
On the fly. I'll text him and I'll say I'm heated. And he'll be like, all right, let's go record.
You know what I mean? But then there's episodes like the social media panel that we did with Raquel Boris, Joe Wilson from Social Coach, and Delilah Ramos, the taco lady.
Yeah.
And that one was really extensive because I had these social media guys. I really wanted them to give us the best possible, you know what I mean? So I spent a lot of time researching and creating like the dialogue that I really wanted them to go down. So each episode, Jackie, has its own flavor. But I will say one thing, like the studio that we have now in the office saves me a lot of time, right? Because when the first season happened, I was recording in my house. I would literally have to set up everything and it would literally take me 90 minutes to set up a show. Now I literally just walk in, I turn things on, I make sure everything is balanced, and then normally JP's here and he's producing, so he's making the sound checks, he's doing everything for us. So it really is a little bit more automated now, but it's taken 3 years to get to this point. So everything just takes time. So
my next question was gonna be, and you may touch on this a little bit later. Was there like a hierarchy of platforms that you launched your podcast on?
Yeah, so first we did launch it on, I think the first one that we got picked up on was Spotify. And then Spotify went to Apple Podcast and a few others. We were using Anchor.fm, which a lot of people don't like, but we really liked them. They were really comfortable for us on the way they were allowing us to kind of use their platform and then also spread the news about us. Today we have our own website called laughlindandeat.com. So what really happens is we're directing people to that website, and then they can hear the episodes that are the most recent from the website now. So we're really using that more than any other platform, but we're still getting, Spotify and Apple still seem to be, head and head as far as the number of listeners, but the listenership from our website is actually driving up each week.
I would say too, we also do YouTube, and I think that what you're going to also want to decide is, do you want it to be just an audio, or do you want it to be audio with video? Because that will also, kind of set up which platforms you use. So I know for Fobby and I, a lot of the podcasts and episodes, even though they're going out as audio on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, we also are utilizing those video clips to promote on other social media platforms. So I would say, if you're the type of person that's afraid of video, reconsider, because the way that you're able to reach and promote your podcast, you can't really promote in audio. But if you're able to take snippets of clips, and maybe you don't record the whole thing, but maybe you record something just to be able to use that to promote it elsewhere. So we just started, for example, an Instagram. So now all of our promo videos go on a reel, and then it's posted to our Instagram, our Facebook. So that also helps kind of track the links back to either directing it to the website, directing it to Spotify, something like that.
Yeah. All good stuff there.
So I guess I don't have like a technical question per se in that sense, but my hi. Thank you for this.
Hello.
Hi. I think personally, my biggest roadblock is, how do I get out of my head, right, to just do it and not get that, get past that fear factor of putting myself out there and, in the world type thing. Did you guys, or is that something that you guys even went through, that whole?
Madness did
My
not, because she's from Jersey, so
episode,
she has no fear. So stop lying, Madness.
No.
You had
No, I was
no
going to say
freaking
the
fear at
opposite.
all.
My first episode, after I realized that we recorded it, I was up at like late at night, and I texted Fobby, and I was like, oh my, like I was going over in my head what I thought I said out loud, and I was like, oh my God, did I give like a specific number for it? Like I started to really just like, what am I doing? I'm putting all of my like personal business out on a platform. And then it went off, he was like, it's going out there, like too late, we already recorded it. And I think each and every time I have learned and grown, and you can, attest, maybe Fobby can attest to that. But I think my first interview, I talked more than the person we were interviewing. And then the next time that we did it, he was like, Maddie, shut up, like, just shut up and like, let the other person who's supposed to be the guest star be on the show. So you're always going to make mistakes, but I think just do it, like literally doing it. I mean, Fobby gave me no choice, so I can't say that maybe I wouldn't have posted it if it was up to me. But I'd say that, just get out of your head, and if you make mistakes, no one knows.
Hang on, Carlos, but I want to ask you a question here, because the deeper question is this, okay? You said you want to do it, what's holding blah, 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 right? Yeah. The number one question is, why haven't you done it? And you got to answer it really quickly. Why haven't you done it?
Fear.
Okay, so just stop right there, right? That's it, right? So what happens is, everything I've ever wanted, Carlos, has been on the other side of my fears. Everything in life, right? When I wanted to marry my wife 29 years ago and I couldn't ask her, right? It was on the other side of my fear. What if she says no, right? When I want to do this, is on the other side of fear. So everything in life we want is on the other side of fear. Yeah. So if it's just fear, and you know what happens when you go through fear, you get to the other side. What's the worst thing that'll happen, Carlos, if you launch a podcast and you become 1,801 podcast, right? There's 1,800 mortgage podcasts right now. Yeah. If you do 1,801, what happens?
Yeah.
What happens?
I did it. I went past it. I did it.
Right. Now, guess what? If it sucks, no big deal. You tried, right? But on the other hand, chance is really good, and people start talking to you, and you become kind of a icon in your industry or your marketplace. And dude, wasn't it worth it? I mean, listen. So, I mean, it's fear, man. That's all it is. As simple as that. There's nothing else ever stopping all of us. It's fear.
That's right. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
brother. Good luck.
Hey, Bobby,
sir.
I had to turn off my video because I think I got some resource issues here with Zoom. But the answer, I think, it was Carlos, the one that was talking.
Yes.
For me, you know, I don't get in front of people. I mean, that's kind of my numbers guy. I rarely get in front of people. And over the years, you know, I've had to learn how to get in front of people. And this kind of relates to, I guess, what you're talking about. But what I've done most recently, Carlos, that helps me is that I actually turn on Zoom. I pick a topic that I'm going to speak about in totality, you know, complete start to finish, like in about 2 minutes. Okay. And I'd sit there and I'd have the screens up and I'd start like I was speaking to the audience. And I do that over and over again. And I cannot believe how much, one, I would improve as I'm doing it. And two, I would gain more confidence as I'm doing it. So what worked for me, I don't know if it will work for anybody else, but for me, I actually did 2-minute segments to start out with on a topic. I did it on my own when I got comfortable with it. You know, I showed my kids, you know, they laughed. You know, I showed my wife, you know, she kind of like, oh, that makes kind of sense. But I guess, you know, seeing what you look like, you know, putting it together, you know, may help you. It helped me.
All right. That's good.
I like that a lot. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're very welcome.
Really sound
Can I
advice,
tell
man.
a story on Andy?
Yeah.
When Andy first,
Oh, geez.
yeah,
Hey, Candy.
okay. When Andy first started doing the video, this is a good segue. When Andy started doing the video on Zoom, he was actually using one of the company accounts. So I saw just how many times he was trying. Now he uses his own, so I don't see them anymore. But I gave him his own company account, so I don't have to go through and delete them all.
I mean,
Yeah, start and
That's
stop.
amazing.
I know this technique works because it worked for him. I saw it happen.
yeah. And that's the whole thing,
Thank you,
Carlos,
Candy.
is practice. You know what I mean? The more
I think
we practice,
repetition, yeah.
I mean, this is not something that we are all trained to do. You know, so it's just like it happens, and you know, if you're a talker, it's great. If you're not, then find out what's comfortable. So actually, Madison, let's go to the next slide, and Carlos, this might help you here. So format. What's the format that you're going to go with, right? Because this really begins to kind of decide on how we want the show to come off. So your format is your personality, and I underline that because that was a very important statement for me to get across to you guys. This is who you are. So Laugh, Lend, and Eat, conversations with people in the mortgage industry, in the marketing industry, in the spiritual industry, in the psychological industry, they all come on Laugh, Lend, and Eat. That's all part of my personality. So when they come on the show, I'm absolutely engaged because I want to learn from them. So I literally think about this to myself, that I get to spend 1 hour with somebody who wrote a book about how to calm your brain. You know what I mean? And how much would that cost me if you didn't come on my show? And I get to have this one-on-one conversation with them. And that's a huge, huge bonus. So the personality is where you comes in at, right? It should make you want to record a new episode. I mean, you know, Madness will tell you, I mean, when she calls or texts, like, I'm ready to record, you know, she wants to record an episode of Madness, right? Because she's had
Something to say.
Yeah, she's had a bad flight from Tampa to New Jersey, or New Jersey to Tampa, whichever one it was that 1 week, right, Madness?
Yeah, oh yeah. Which one? Yeah.
One time I had her do notes for 1 week. I said, just write down all the stuff that pisses you off 1 week, and then we're going to record all your venting in one show. So she's like, I ran out of pages.
And I've had people come back to me and say, oh my God, like I went through that, or like, I love that episode. You know, I think the more that you can like shine your authentic self through, the more people appreciate it. No one wants to sit and listen to something.
And that's really what makes it so special, because the people who hear your voice and hear your message will relate, and they'll be the ones tuning in. And it really is interesting. So how long is a podcast, right? The average length industry-wide is 36 minutes, right? So we try to do about 35 minutes. We normally run into about 50 minutes. With the Madness episodes, we keep them down to about 20 to 25 minutes, because I don't want Madness to have a heart attack venting while she's recording with me. I don't want to be liable for that shit. So, you know, and then we're doing another thing called biographies, which I think we did one on Christine Beckwith earlier a few months ago. And those are about 45 to 50 minutes. but the average podcast length is 36 minutes. So if you can talk for 35 to 40 minutes, you hit the average length, right? So no offense. Listen, if you do 20 minutes, you'll find also you can build up to 35 minutes. You don't have to do 35 minutes to coming out of the gate. Some common formats for podcasts, right? The interview podcast, which is what me and Madison do, right? Then there's a co-hosted podcast, which me and Madison do, right? Here's something that we don't do: scripted nonfiction or fiction, right? This is literally actually kind of Candy's alley. This is where somebody writes a book, and then they will actually do a podcast based on their book. And so there's a really good book that I love called The Go-Giver. He has a podcast, comes out weekly or monthly, I think. And it's a very scripted to what his book is about, and then they talk about it and that kind of stuff. So it's really interesting. News recaps, which are really good podcasts. They can dive deep into and have their own opinions. Educational podcasts, which sometimes we do get on, you know what I mean? Like people who are going to see this episode, by the way, you know, we're recording you for an episode right now, right?
So yeah, you guys are doing your first podcast already, so you got to get out of your head.
Welcome to the world of
First one's already
podcasting.
out of the way.
So what happened?
I did it. I did it. And I'm in the top 1800.
Top 9.
Nice,
There you
man.
go,
Look at
top
that, man. Bullet straight to the top. So this would be considered educational podcast because we're going to teach people on our podcast how to create a podcast. And that was the whole gist of why we wanted to do this as an episode, right? And then another thing, how often do you need to release a new episode? So this kind of goes back to Jackie's question, right? The average frequency between a new episode comes out 8 to 14 days. We're averaging about one every 10 to 12 days, which is really comfortable pace for us. Every now and then, I haven't done it in a while, Jackie, but I have been known to record like 7 episodes in a month. And I will be absolutely drained by the time that the 7th episode is done. But it's because I'm going on vacation or something's about to happen that I need a few weeks off. So we book a lot of guests ahead of time. Like right now, we're pretty much booked up until February of next year. So that's how far ahead we're booked. And that's a great problem to have. You know what I mean? So once again, the frequency of these things, they come out 8 to 14 days. So if you're recording 2 episodes a month, Carlos, you're fine. By the way, if you record 1 episode a month, I think it's awesome too.
You're still fine. Yeah.
Yeah. I know Jason and Christine used to have a podcast, Mortgage X, and it would come out randomly. Like I was asking Jason, said, is there a schedule? He goes, yeah, whenever I can get Christine to talk. So it's there is no like something etched in stone. Now look, if you're a type A guy like me, I'm OCD. I am like, like if I'm going to do something, I want to do it amazingly. So yeah, then you got to get all this stuff down and but it falls into place. So it's not that difficult. That's the cool thing is like, once you start going, it does fall into place. What are you going to say, Madison?
I was going to say, so I don't know, like what everyone's roles are here, but I'm a producing loan officer right now. So one of the things that was difficult for me in the beginning was time management. And what I will say or attest to that, again, I'm not perfect in any way, but if you are true to yourself and know yourself, you really have to sit down and think about, okay, I know that I want to do this, but how much time do I really have to do this? And if I don't have the time, when and where can I make the time? So that might look like filming 3 podcasts in one day, so you don't have to worry about it for the month. Or maybe that's, me and Fobby typically, outside of the Madness episodes, our traditional normal time to record an episode is Thursdays at 2 p.m. So I always know in the back of my mind not to schedule things on Thursdays at 2 p.m. if we're going to have a podcast. So you really have to get, because like you say, there can be planning. It can be just you clicking record and just going. But I'd say with the consistency, if you want to stay consistent, it's easy to record your first one and then not do the next one for 3 months. Really set up like a time schedule for yourself based on your realistic schedule. And again, whether it's, doing one Sunday a month where you record 4 episodes, or you stick to that Thursday at 2 p.m. schedule, that really helps a lot.
Yeah, it really does. And especially with guests and booking guests, you can just, like, if you want to schedule somebody, say, hey, look, we normally record
Here's a bunch of Thursdays for the next 3 months. Yeah.
And so they can pick one, if they say, hey, look, on Thursdays, I'm coaching my daughter's soccer team at 2 o'clock, then you can
Then we change
accommodate
it
it.
up.
If the guest is
Yeah.
good enough, you can accommodate them, right? Sometimes the guest isn't good enough. We've had run recently where I got tired of his crap and just said, see you later. I mean, I hope he doesn't hear this. Figure out who he is. But it was just like, I couldn't keep just moving my schedule around for the guy. You know what I mean? Everybody's busy. Everybody's busy no matter who you are. So, format is increasing. I mean, just really critical that you write down your format that you want. And then this goes back to Jackie's original question. This will also tell you how much time you're going to need. Because having this format ahead of time, you can then begin to decide, okay, this is going to take about 3 hours of my week. Every week I do an episode, it's going to take 3 hours of my life. So do I want to do that, or it's not worth it? You know what I mean? And then you can decide that. So, all right, let's go into equipment, Madison. So let's talk about equipment here. So we need more mics, right? Because this is, to me, this is critical. If you can look on here, I don't know if I can point or not, but the top picture is my first microphone. It was the Mortgage Ninja. Right? So I used to have the Mortgage Ninja microphone, which is what Madison, I think you have today, the blue one.
I have it. I'm the biggest fraud. I never use my microphone.
So that's the cool thing about this is you don't need to have expensive equipment. Hey man, what are you doing there? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So you don't need to have expensive equipment for doing podcasting. I mean, literally, I started off with this microphone. I think it cost me $35 on Amazon.
Yep.
You know what I mean, and it plugged right into my computer. I didn't need any special cables. I didn't need anything. It just boom, boom, and I was ready to start podcasting. So you don't need to start off like this. You know what I mean? I've had a few people say they want to start a podcast, but they want to start from here. And I'm like, well, if you do, you just got to have the money to do that. And that's fine. Most of us kind of slow build up to that. So second one, microphone is the one where I kind of spent a couple of $100 and tried that one for a while. And then the last one is the one that I have today, which is about $400. Really, once you get sponsors like we have, then you can start investing some of the money back into the equipment. And then that can kind of like generate, better quality sound. Now that one, by the way, just FYI, the first two microphones on the top were all USB cables. The one on the bottom, the one that you're seeing me right now with, is called an XLR, and it goes into a mixer so you can have a little bit more control over your volume and your quality of sound when you're recording. You don't need to have it though. I can tell you right now, I mean, sometimes I regret moving to this last microphone, but it's like once you have it, you got to keep it, right? So you got to move on. But USB plugging directly into your computer is just the quality. People are not going to notice. They're just
no, and you can do it from wherever. That's also the really like it's a portable, so you can bring it wherever and record from wherever.
Yeah. So I'm not going to talk a lot about this because honestly, I think microphones are a very personal thing, and really, the one thing I will make sure that you do understand is you want to get dynamic microphones because they do block out more of the noise. So like in the beginning, if you look on the top picture, I'm recording from my home studio or my home office. So my dog would open the door and burst in sometimes. He's like, is my bone in here? You know what I mean? And I was like, come on, dude, I'm recording. I got Barry Habib on here. Kind of crap. And so that, but overall, little by little by little, then you get the dynamic microphone, which will block out some sound. And so all they're hearing is your voice and some sound that comes in directly into the condenser microphone that way. But microphones, you can also use if you have a webcam with Logitech, I think
that's what I have.
Yeah. They have a built-in microphone, believe it or not, that does just as well as almost anything. The only thing is the placement of it. So that's the only thing I would caution you of is the more distance between your voice and the microphone is going to cause more of a hollow sound. So the closer your microphone is to your voice, your mouth, the better quality you'll get. And being a podcast, you want to be able to get that quality of sound across to your listeners. So microphones are really, really, really important, but you don't have to spend a ton of money initially to get off the ground. So don't feel like, oh man, I don't want to spend $500 on a microphone. Don't do it. Spend $35. Spend nothing, whatever. You know what I mean? Josh from Shred Media told me his first 10 episodes he recorded with his Apple phone. So just an FYI, you know what I mean? You don't need really technical equipment if you don't have it. Everything works out if you have the desire to make it work out.
Yeah,
right?
and I'd say for anyone really new, just wait, see if you like the podcasting before investing.
Great idea. Yeah, that's a great idea. Wish my son would listen to that. So next slide is the question. I think Madison talked about this earlier. To video or not to video, right? That is the question, because obviously the podcast traditional format is audio only. And I was a guest on a podcast a few months ago, and it was really weird. We're talking via Zoom, and then the host like, okay, we're ready to start recording. Let's turn off our cameras because this is audio only. And I was like, what? I set up the whole background, you know what I mean? So, but it was an audio only podcast. He was a traditionalist podcast host. And so they were just doing audio only. So if you have a fear of a camera, if you don't want to, you know, you can do audio only podcasts, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's the way they were originally started. FYI, just a little side note, back in the 80s, podcasts were actually called audio blogs. And so they've been around a long time. It's a guy from MTV who was a video, one of those VJs or whatever they call them. I think it was Adam Curry, but don't quote. He's the one who actually was part of the whole podcast. They came with the chip to how to download internet radio stations and make them listenable on the computer. So adding a video option is your personal choice. Back to Logitech webcams. I'm not promoting them, but obviously I started off with the Logitech webcam. Recently just added a 4K streaming camcorder about 2-3 months ago. Once again, it's not needed. You know what I mean? You can do things. Literally, I think my first ensemble of equipment cost me less than $100, maybe $120, give or take. You know what I mean? And I was off and running. So you don't need a lot of money to do this. Now, if you do start videoing, I would tell you to invest in lighting. So a ring light is helpful. I think we have about 3 or 4 lights here in the studio today. You know, the better lighting, the angles, that kind of stuff is important, and you can figure that out yourself. But all these things you can ignore if you simply go with the audio only format. So I'm not trying to push the audio only format. All I'm trying to do is make sure that you guys understand that video is not mandatory. There are plenty of audio only podcasts out there that are doing phenomenally well. And so, you know, if you're seeing other people with videos like me and Madison and other people, it's not needed. So enough on that, right? Any questions on this topic? Anything that so far has stirred anybody to say anything? So we covered a lot of information. I think we did it pretty quickly. It's looks like about 4 more minutes left in this class. So obviously, any questions generally that we didn't cover that you guys might have at this point? Let's see, we had more people joining here while we were doing that screen share there, Madison. So not sure. Or did we cover everything already and we can say goodbye? All right, looks like we don't have any questions from our general audience here, Madison. Madison, you got a rant for us? Anything piss you off recently?
No, it's guys, everyone just send good energy to me right now because I have a really good month going. So hopefully there's no pants needed.
Where are you?
Actually, I will. I have one story.
What is it?
Yesterday, I got an email at 7 o'clock at night from a title company that let me know that my client, who is closing next week, had foreclosed on a home that they did not disclose.
There you go. Attaboy.
Yes.
Yeah.
We love it.
Then they get mad at you on why the rate's so high.
Well, she goes, I thought you knew. I go, like, how was I supposed to know that? Yeah. Like, you literally checked no on the application and you've never talked about it once to me.
Did you ask him? Did you ask him, has your husband foreclosed?
You go, I mean, I go personally, so this is from previous experience, I go through the declaration section and I ask the questions. And then like after they've already filled out the application to make sure that they've accurately selected no for everything. So it was like double slap in the face.
First time home buyers?
You know. Okay. Can't be if you're foreclosed on a home.
Great. What am I? Yeah, right. Too many lights in my eyes. Sorry.
Well, technically, by definition, you could be a first-time home buyer.
Thank you, Jackie. I appreciate that. Look at Jackie covered up Fobby for you.
But I will say we're able to switch it. It was far enough out. There's a loan program that will allow for this type of foreclosure. So
all right,
we're good.
You saved. No wonder you're in a good mood.
I'm trying. I'm really just trying to take
that's like your one pass for what? The next 90 days, 6 months?
Yeah,
Like that's your
right?
win. So it's done.
Exactly.
It's over. The championship bell has already rung. The belt's been given. You're back to square one.
We're good. We're good.
All right, everybody. Well, we got a good rant in from Madison. It all ended well for her this week, so that's good.
It
We did a
did.
good episode here. We got some good Q&A from Carlos and Jackie. We got some other chat going on there that I saw that too late, so I couldn't answer your stuff there, Joseph. But anyway, I think we're gonna wrap it up. So I know JP's not here to get us out of here, Madison, but we'll just get out of here. How's that?
We'll just get out of here. If you guys follow us on Instagram, listen to our podcast. If you ever have any questions that weren't answered here today, you can always reach out to Fobby and us.
How do they follow us on
Me and us,
Instagram?
Fobby and I.
How do they follow us on Instagram, Madison? Like, I'm an
Laugh,
old guy.
Lemon, Eat
I mean, I'm around
podcast.
55. I'm lucky to be on Facebook.
You follow it on Instagram, so you know how to follow on Instagram.
You probably did it for me.
Probably.
All right, guys. Thank you so
All right,
much.
guys.
Thank you.
Is it
Have a great day.
At podcast.
I'm sorry.
It is Laugh, Lend, and Eat podcast. Or Laugh, Lend, and Eat, not podcast or podcast.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
that's how we post all of our little clips of what's to come for the
And
upcoming
Carlos, if you
episode.
do follow us, please let me know when your first episode's coming out, brother, or your second episode. That'll be your second
Yes.
episode.
Will do. Hopefully it does as good as this one.
It will.
Yeah,
You'll
I
do
mean,
good. You'll do
congrats everyone for your first podcast.
good. Yeah, absolutely. All right.
All
Thank you,
right.
guys. Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of Laugh, Lend, and Eat, the podcast. You can now enjoy Fobby's article, Laugh, Lend, and Eat, featured in the Vision magazine. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where each month we are giving away some swag for our lucky listener to show off. Thank you to our sponsors for their continued support, First Option Mortgage and One Good One Recruiting. And remember, you have to be something, so be kind.